When Netflix first released the Daredevil TV show 10 years ago, it was the best superhero show I'd ever seen. Then they came up with a bunch of other shows that weren't as good as the Daredevil TV show, but they were still pretty damn good. And now, 10 years later, Marvel has released this. Don't get me wrong, I actually like the show, sure. But not as much as I like the Netflix show. I do, however, see the show getting better simply because of how it's progressed so far, if that makes sense. Let's start at the beginning. The show starts with Foggy getting killed. Already, this is not something I like, but it makes an impact. It adds weight to what's happening. So Foggy gets killed and Daredevil beats up Bullseye in a really satisfying fight sequence. That whole fight with Bullseye in the stairway, Foggy dying, Daredevil throwing Bullseye off the top of the building is just really good TV. And from then on, the scene changes and kind of slows down. I watched the first episode and then I watched the second episode, and sure, the show doesn't feel as bad as the other Marvel TV shows, but it also doesn't feel special. It doesn't feel like a worthy successor of the other 3 seasons of Daredevil we've seen so far. And then we get to the end of the second episode. There's a short 20-second fight between Matt Murdock and a couple of, I wouldn't say twisted cops, but they're certainly not fans of common law. Now, so far, Matt has been trying to hold himself back. He's trying to put down Daredevil, make sure he never surfaces again, and he's mostly successful. But here, he kind of loses his shit and beats up the cops real bad. And after that, after he's beat them up, he realizes he's let go of whatever was holding him back, and he's mad at himself. He's angry that he's let go. He's devastated that he's given in to his old ways, and he screams. And when he screams, that was when I decided I was going to love the show. In the very next episode, he goes back to being Matt Murdock and not Daredevil, which, I don't know. It was stupid setting up a dramatic moment like that and reversing the whole damn thing in the next episode. But I'd already decided to like the show. Even if the show had problems after problems thrown at it, I still like the show. Anyway, structurally, Daredevil is broken up into 5 parts. The first episode that reintroduces us to Daredevil and all the major characters. The second and the third episode that focuses on Hector Ayala, or the White Tiger case. Episodes 4 and 5 are sort of filler episodes, but then we get a bad guy called Muse in episodes 6 and 7, and episodes 8 and 7 close the season. The first episode is all set up, so it's alright, it's subpar, but it's bearable, simply because I know things will get better. The second episode is again underwhelming because it still sets up, this time episode 3, but it begins to introduce more of the Hector Ayala case, and it ends with the aforementioned Matt Murdock scream at the end, so I'm sort of hooked to it by now. And then we get the third episode, which is a courtroom drama essentially. And courtroom dramas can be interesting. I've seen interesting courtroom dramas like Boston Legal. I've seen Suits, Jolly LLB. So courtroom dramas can be interesting. And this episode is no different. We have a courtroom case and Matt is fighting a lawyer over the Hector Ayala case. And it's fun. It's a fun episode. I had fun watching it. And then the episode ends. Look, I didn't know they were going to kill Hector Ayala. That was sort of a shock for me. Seeing him die, it broke my heart a little. From that, we get to episode 4 in which Matt goes and meets the Punisher and they talk. And this talk, it's a good talk. It's a really good talk because the Punisher reminds Matt that he still hasn't gotten over Foggy's death. And it's an emotional moment. And look, I like Jon Bernthal. I love his Punisher. It's not comics accurate. This Punisher is more vocal about the stuff that hurts him. He's more hopeful to people in sort of a direct way. He's not the Punisher from the comics, but he's still a pretty damn good Punisher. I like episode 5. It's like a bottle episode set inside a bank. It has Mohan Kapoor, who's brilliant as Kamala's father. I like the episode, but I don't think it added anything substantial to the overall plot. Episodes 6 and 7 are about Muse. Matt finally embraces his Daredevil role because story requirement. I hate that they don't have an emotional reason for him to become the Daredevil. He just becomes the Daredevil because he feels like it. The moment just didn't feel like it was earned. The last 2 episodes are written pretty well. They ended the show on a good note. Well, sort of a good note. The Punisher appears in the last episode. He goes in, fights a bunch of cops, then gets caught by them. It's one thing to have him go in and fight the cops. It's another to see him actually get caught. That's insane. The Punisher would never walk into a fight where he would ever get caught, and not by a bunch of cops of all people. And the last scene has Daredevil meet a bunch of people fighting the good fight in his name. That's sort of a very comic book ending. I would have preferred it if they had a realistic ending in this case. But other than that, this was a solid episode. Matt and Frank share some pretty good quips by the last episode. They're fighting and talking and joking, and it's nice. It's nice to see the Punisher get some levity in all this doom and gloom. I don't know why I'm talking about the Punisher so much in my video about Daredevil. Anyway, it turns out 2 creative teams worked on this show. One that wrote the original show, and one that came in and added Foggy and Karen and the first and the last 2 episodes. And it feels uneven. The show, it feels like a Frankenstein's monster of sorts. It isn't very obvious, this mishmash of 2 showrunners, but the show feels uneven. It feels like a show that should have been good. It could have been good, like the first 3 seasons we saw on Netflix, but it's not. I still like it. It's a good show, but it's not as good as it could have been. Look, you can tell that this show went through a lot of changes, alright? It isn't evident from the way the show looks, because it's edited together pretty well. But it feels like it's stitched together. It's not stitched together very well. Matt, for example, doesn't address the fact that Foggy has died throughout the series except for a few moments here and there. And he's functioning pretty ordinarily. And the whole thing feels very clunky. In this show about superheroes, which is an absurd premise, a great premise for great stories, but absurd. We have this really absurd thing. Matt Murdock taking on so many pro bono cases. Look, I understand he's a good guy, a hero. He takes on free cases for people who are in trouble, who have no money. But in the real world, I doubt there's any lawyer who would take on a free case just because he wants to help people without getting anything in return. I'm probably cynical for saying this, but it's true. People don't just do stuff for others with no intention of getting anything in return. I'm willing to accept that if everything in your life is going well, if you're financially set and your life is good, you might help other people. But Matt's life is kind of hell. All kinds of hell. I don't think he or anyone would really help someone for free in such cases. Before we leave, let me talk about one very random thing that happened in the show. The Kingpin brings this police commissioner into some sort of basement and he holds the police commissioner's head and he just squeezes it open. His skull cracks and brains fall out, and that scene, it was lifted from a Daredevil comic. It's slightly different in the comic, but it's there. I just thought that was a fun little thing that you could take away with you before you leave. Alright, that's all I have for this video. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.